Hello and welcome. In this brief presentation, my colleague Rachel Haley Himmelheber and I want to introduce you to our recently redesigned creative writing curriculum, its structure, as well as its theoretical background, as well as some of the details about which we are particularly excited. Indeed, to title our presentation after bell hooks, A Practice of Freedom may be a bit grandiose. Our more modest hope is that this new curriculum will offer students a practice that is aware of the allocations of power embedded within the discipline, while offering them spaces to critique and expand that discipline, as well as an agency to locate and assert themselves within it. I'm going to briefly outline the structure of the curriculum and then talk about some of the theoretical bases. Then Rachel will develop these ideas by talking in more detail about what we see as one of our key innovations, a new course we call Processes and Theories of Revision. So the new creative writing curriculum. The new curriculum borrows from Studio Art to begin with 3 foundations courses: Forms and Theories in Fiction, Poetry, and Creative Nonfiction. Student takes all 3, where previously we'd offered a single Intro to Creative Writing class that sampled each of these 3 genres in one semester. Once these foundations are complete, the student moves into Processes and Theories of Revision. This is followed by advanced workshops. Students take 2 of the 3 genres, advanced workshops. Then Research in Creative Writing, which previously was a popular elective, is now a required pre-capstone course, which prepares students to enter the senior project with a creative project already well begun. Students also create a plan of study that weaves in critical reading courses from both the creative writing department and our companion English department, chosen to particularly support their interest and the genres in which they're writing. We brought multiple theoretical bases to this curriculum. First, we considered how we might create bell hooks engaged pedagogy, a concept that remains relevant to us even as the citation takes us back to 1994. In Teaching to Transgress, Education as a Practice of Freedom, Hooks advocates for a pedagogy that doesn't prescribe, but rather allows space for the student to bring and negotiate their own intellectual and artistic ideas and ideals. Hooks also speaks of the possibility of mutual recognition between student and teacher, something that we take to include the ways in which in creative writing we are all, both teachers and students as writers, engaged in and finding our way in practice. We were informed by the broad movement to decolonize the curriculum. This means decolonizing the syllabus, as our students are rightly challenging us to do, always, but particularly this summer, to assert Black Lives Matter, lifting up Black voices in the content of our courses. For us, though, this also means decolonizing craft itself. We attempt this by recognizing and teaching what Matthew Salesi's has asserted, that pure craft is a lie, which then leads to the challenge: how to teach craft terms and concepts and critique the monolith of craft at the same time, or in sequence. We embraced Lee Shulman's premise that a signature pedagogy, which in creative writing is the workshop, does more than teach the knowledge and practice of a discipline. It actually also reflects the identity and worldview of that field. And likewise, critical participants in that signature pedagogy, students themselves, become contributors to the shaping field. In this way, we also paid attention to the activity of discipline formation, given that creative writing is a young and still defining discipline. And we especially took a critical look at our assumptions about what counts as research methodology in that newly defining discipline. So broadly, with all of these theoretical considerations, they led us to one single conclusion. We really needed more space in the curriculum, although we were resistant to add more credits and courses. So we also considered ways we could reapportion the curricular space that we had, so we could engage students and ourselves in critical pedagogy that both presents the knowledge and skills of creative writing, but also interrogates them. So that chestnut that you need to know the rules before you can break them assumes a sequence as well as an hegemony. What would it look like then to both present conventions and interrogate them? Might that sometimes mean breaking things first? this is a question that Rachel and I have been entertaining up and down the hall for quite some time, but now I'll pass the presentation, if not the question itself, to Rachel.
Thank you, Gary. Since this is a short presentation, we'll have time to further examine only one of the courses in our new curriculum, Processes and Theories of Revision, a 2,000 level multi-genre course, ideally taken a student's second or third year in the major or minor. Since all students in the revision course will have successfully completed all 3 of our single genre courses, they come to this revision course with drafts, partial drafts, and notes towards drafts of poems, essays, and stories. In other words, they come prepared to revise. I begin the course by asking, if we hold the following 3 values to be true, how might we understand and employ them in our writing lives? The 3 values being, writing is rewriting, reading is rereading, and practice is coming back to practice. My focus here is on students finding their own ways in to these values and on offering them an array of beliefs and theories to understand and enact them. Students begin the course by completing a radical re-envisioning draft in order to immediately disrupt notions of revising as perfecting or editing a draft. Next, we read canonical interviews from the Paris Review interviews, working to pull out any beliefs or theories we see the writer using. And then each student also finds non-canonical interviews to recommend. Next, we review terminology and concepts from the genres, alongside reading and discussing Matthew Seles's Pure Craft is a Lie, which argues that all craft is culturally inflected. As Seles's asks, but why should a writer have to know the rules first? Whose rules are they? Why are those the rules they have to learn? With this, we begin explicit discussion of how systems of power and oppression inflect our notions of craft, taste, and standards in creative writing. The hope here is to reorient all of us in the course toward using terminology with appropriate skepticism and nuance, and also towards rejecting terminology or concepts as we wish, or reimagining terminology and concepts. Students then begin their reading revision project, choosing to reread 3 published texts from their previous college courses or from high school, and they annotate them, paying close attention to how they are made. The next unit has us enacting the workshop alongside reading and discussions about what is problematic about the workshop, a kind of review of the typical critiques of it. I begin with a mini lecture on workshop history in US academia, which immediately positions the workshop as a construct, not a natural good or a universal way of teaching writing. Then my students read different approaches to workshops, alternatives that also offer critique, including Karen Crago's A Case for Workshop Alternatives, Tina Cabrera's Rethinking the Creative Writing Workshop, and Robin Hemley's Workshop Alternatives. Then my students author their own workshops, inventing their own rules for written feedback and how to use the half hour of class time, with written reflection time after each workshop for every workshop participant. As we are enacting these workshops, we read Lisa Lee's Racial Invisibility and Erasure in the Writing Workshop, and Matthew Seles's Who's at the Center of Workshop and Who Should Be. Lee argues that the workshop mirrors the way in which the voices and experiences of people of color are suppressed in American culture. And so we pause during our own workshops to reflect specifically on how that might be happening in our space too. After learning about the history of workshop, reading critiques of the workshop, authoring their own workshop style, receiving their feedback, writing their own feedback and their reflections, and enacting all the different workshop styles, my students then write a revision and a cover letter discussing their choices and citing all these influences. Then we have a unit on punctuation, using a dash of style, the art and mastery of punctuation, as a way to continue to question the prescriptive teaching of writing and the hierarchical structures behind prescriptivism. I call the project Emotional Entanglement with a Mark of Punctuation, and encourage, through reading the book and writing a series of short essays, a cozier relationship with punctuation. The final exam asks the students to revise a third piece of writing using any techniques or insights they have learned. In this revision cover letter, students must consider the influence of their radical revision, their understanding of craft terminology and concepts, the interviews with writers and the theories of writing within them, the experience of workshop, and the exploration of punctuation. We recognize this presentation is so brief. We hope we will have a chance to further explore this curriculum with you in the Q&A.